I can't say that I had a perfect life, because there's always problems to deal with. Still, I had a happy life. My parents loved each other, and that's something not every family can say. Though we were by no means rich, both Mom and Dad worked hard, and we owned our own home. But before I go on, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more awesome video. My parents worked for the same company and spent most of their days together. They met in high school and even went to prom together. It's so cute. Ever since they began dating, they became this amazing team. Nothing could tear them apart. I always thought that this represented true love, but I would go on to realize that to my father, it was really total dependence. My whole life changed the moment my mother died. That's when everything fell apart. I can still remember the moment my principal called me to her office. She sounded so worried, and I thought I was in some kind of trouble. Since I was the class's goody two-shoes, everyone was surprised. How could I be in any sort of trouble when I was always the perfect girl? Reluctantly, I headed over to the principal's office, confused and upset about wasting my time. I didn't want to miss any class after all, but the instant I stepped into the office and saw the expression on the principal's face, I knew something was definitely wrong. "You need to go home now, honey. I'm sorry to have to be the one to tell you this, but something happened to your mom," she said, and that's when my entire world shattered. The next few weeks slipped by like they hadn't even happened. It was like I was lost in a nightmare and couldn't wake up. Even though I was grieving badly, the one who seemed to be the most affected by Mom's death was my father. Oh, he was completely broken, barely able to get out of bed. He lost a lot of weight, since he would refuse to eat anything at all. He had lost his life partner, the woman who supported him through thick and thin, the reason he kept on going. One would say that his love for his only daughter and concern for her well-being would be enough to keep him going. But one would be wrong. I wasn't enough. It took him almost a month to return to work, and once he did, it was like nothing else existed. Every afternoon after work, he failed to return home and began hopping from bar to bar. He barely ate at all, but drunk like his life depended on it. Even though I was sad to lose my mother, I wanted to keep moving on. I wanted to move on, like she would have wanted me to. And so I decided I needed to help my father get there too. Help him understand life was still worth living. I cooked every meal, tidied up the house, did laundry. I basically took on every single chore in our household. And yet nothing seemed to help. My father was drifting away, completely forgetting he had a daughter who needed him. Before the year was over, I was forced to accept the sad reality that I had lost my mother and my father. It was heartbreaking, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Dad gave me a credit card to take care of bills and all the purchases I needed to make, but that was it. He didn't speak to me. He didn't take care of me. He never came to any of my school activities. It was as if I had ceased to exist or something in his eyes. A full year slipped by, and oh, that was when things truly took a turn for the worse. Dad had begun drinking even more so, and apparently he came into work hung over one too many times. When I was in my senior year, he was laid off. He didn't tell me the whole story, but I ended up figuring out that not only was he a lousy employee, but he had also gotten in fights. It was a big mess. I asked him what he planned on doing, and can you believe my father just shrugged his shoulders? I was terrified, as he didn't seem to be looking for anything new. He wasn't trying to get a new job. Fortunately, we owned our house, but everything else began going down the drain. My classmates didn't take long to realize I used the same clothes for months at a time. Sure, I changed and cleaned it, but I only had a handful of outfits to choose from. I stopped being able to buy fancy food or eat out, and would eat at the school cafeteria. I had to sell my mom's jewelry to buy books. It was a mess, and everything was getting worse by the day. It took him some time, but finally, Dad managed to get a job interview. When I arrived home, though, I was shocked to see that he was sitting on the sofa, drinking like there was no tomorrow. I couldn't believe it. He hadn't even left for his interview. One of my friend's father had felt pity for Dad and gotten him that job interview, and he hadn't even bothered showing up. I was so mad, and finally, I snapped at him, losing my cool completely. "Father, tell me you went to the interview, for the love of God!" I yelled at him, throwing the backpack onto the floor. He looked up from the TV, giving me a blank stare before shrugging. "Was it today? I thought it was tomorrow," he replied, without even seeming to care. As I kept glaring his way, he weakly offered an apology. "Sorry, maybe next time I'll remember." I just stood there, baffled. I couldn't believe this was truly happening. I didn't know how to react. Finally, I said, This cannot go this way any longer. We're running out of money, and soon we'll end up losing the house. And what will we do then? I don't want to live on the streets, Dad. I want to get my father back. He didn't even react, and my heart broke so completely that very instant. I rushed up to my room and sobbed for what felt like hours. I decided I needed to get myself a job and keep the bills from piling up. At least then, when I finished high school, I'd be able to have a future. Dad didn't even seem to notice that I was getting home later than usual after that day. For months, I worked hard after school and managed to keep us afloat. We were hanging by a thread, but at least we wouldn't lose the house, and there was food in the fridge. It was something. One day, though, I saw him walking drunkenly down the street, right by the restaurant I was working in as a waitress and cashier. He stared inside, and our eyes met. Something seemed to click inside him, but by then, I had completely lost hope that he'd ever be able to change. From that day on, though, Dad began taking showers, changing his clothes, even cleaning up the house while I was away. He didn't say anything about it, but I wondered, could he truly have finally seen the error in his ways? It was a few weeks later that, exhausted, I arrived home, dreading having to do all the homework I had accumulated over the past few days. I had been working so hard, and I needed so badly to just rest. I heard giggling in the living room, and was stunned as I saw a young woman in her 30s sitting with him. He had lipstick stains on his lips, like they had been making out. I couldn't believe it. She gave me a look and smiled, standing up. The stranger introduced herself as Tammy, and much to my shock, she said, "Your dad's right. You're pretty. You should come work with me at the strip club. You'd make far more money there than working as a waitress." I was stunned. Something had clicked in my dad's head when he saw me working, but not because he felt guilty about it. He just realized he could make money off me. And if that wasn't enough, I saw the stripper wearing one of my mom's earrings. Dad had been giving her what little was left in Mom's jewelry box. This was absolutely insane. I was so mad and refused to do anything of the sort. Dad seemed so annoyed and reprimanded me. "You shouldn't be so selfish," he protested. Well, that was it for me. The instant I finished high school, I left and never, ever looked back. I heard Dad had lost the house, but I haven't bothered to check if that's true. I don't care what happens to my father. I'm now sure that I lost him the same day I lost my mom.